Live from downtown Salt Lake City, this is 2 News at 4.
A new chapter for the Utah Jazz. The Miller family hands over the reins after more than 30 years. We have team coverage on the announcement to sell the team.
And as COVID cases surge here in Utah, another school moves to online learning.
Plus, the last-minute moves the presidential candidates are making less than 6 days out from Election Day.
Thanks for being with us on 2 News at 4 o'clock. The Miller family is ending their 3-decade run as owners of the Utah Jazz. The majority stake is being sold to Qualtrics co-founder Ryan Smith for $1.6 billion.
Yeah, it's all anyone's talking about today, really. We have team coverage on the major announcement. Dave Fox with reaction to the big news. But first, we want to start with Brian Malahy. He is filling us in on the details surrounding this actual really big sale. Brian?
And we are several blocks away from the house that Larry built right up on 3rd West. Gail Miller today making the emotional announcement that what has been for 35 years is coming to an end.
Today is a day I have never been able to imagine. Today, my family and I are here to announce that we've decided to sell a majority interest in the Utah Jazz and its affiliated businesses.
But how much of an interest will the Millers keep? Why sell now? What touched off the deal? How will it be structured? And are there terms in the contract that ensure that the Jazz stay in Utah? Those are among the questions we have. Today, the Millers and the Utah Jazz not taking questions, declining our interviews. Coming up on 2 News at 5 o'clock, a season ticket holder on his reasons why he thinks the Millers are selling now. Also, his answer to this question: if Larry Miller were still alive, would the Millers be selling the Jazz? That's at 5. Brian Malahy, downtown.
Yeah, lots of questions for sure. Thanks so much, Brian. We want to turn it over now to Dave Fox for reaction from Jazz players.
Yes, and also a thought on the team staying in Utah as well. One Utah family selling it to another Utah family. Former Jazz player and current broadcaster of the Jazz, Thurl Bailey, told me the same thing, and they feel very good about that. Reaction did come in a little bit not long ago, both on Instagram and Twitter, from Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. From Instagram, Donovan Mitchell, and he wrote to the Miller family: first of all, I want to say thank you for everything you guys have done for me and the entire organization. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to reach a childhood dream of playing in the NBA. You see the rest of his quote there. Then on Twitter, Rudy Gobert wrote, excited to have Ryan Smith part of the family. I know he is completely dedicated to make this organization the best it can be and continue the great work that he has been doing for our communities. And Rudy went on, of course, to thank the Miller family as well. I spoke with the radio voice of the Jazz, David Locke, just a few minutes ago, and he said that the stars aligned for a perfect fit.
If the Millers ever sell, who could possibly buy it? Right? That, like, it was, well, would the Huntsmans be interested? I don't think the Eccles are. Like, that we didn't, and this is maybe the evolution of Utah again. We didn't actually have the next family in town until guys like Ryan Smith and maybe, you know, some of these other companies that are being built, Pluralsight and others in Silicon Slopes, to be there, to be the next family that owns this franchise in the unique Utah way. And it's luckily we now have that with Ryan's incredible success with Qualtrics.
Coming up on 2 News at 5, Thurl Bailey, I visited with him. He actually played for the Jazz the last time they sold 35 years ago, and he has some interesting comments on these two sales and how they parallel and how they're very different. Guys?
All right, Dave Fox, appreciate that insight right there. So let's compare this Jazz sale price tag of $1.6 billion. Remember, that's for a majority stake, which we don't know the actual percentage of, to other NBA sales. Back in 2019, the Brooklyn Nets sold for $2.35 billion. That's the highest in NBA history. The Rockets sold for $2.2 billion. That's in Houston. And in 2015, the Atlanta Hawks sold for $850 million. And then the LA Clippers in 2014 sold for $2 billion to former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer. Now, according to Forbes, the Millers bought the team for a combined $25 million back in the 1980s. Gail said it was unimaginable risk that they took back then.
And look at that investment. My goodness. Okay, Governor Gary Herbert took to Twitter in response to the news, saying, congratulations to the Miller family. They have developed a terrific franchise in the Utah Jazz, and congratulations to Ryan Smith for investing in the Jazz and in Utah. I wish all involved great success and thank them for all they've done to make Utah the state of sport.
And Salt Lake City Mayor Aaron Mendenhall tweeted, quote, the Miller family gave Utah a generation of camaraderie, fandom, and the joy when they bought the Jazz. Thank you to the Miller family for the many seasons of competition and excitement you gifted our city and state. Welcome, Ryan Smith. Make sure you stay with 2 News for any updates on the sale of the Jazz. We have team coverage ahead on 2 News at 5 and throughout the rest of the afternoon, including more background on the new majority owner, Ryan Smith. You can also check for updates on KUTV.com and our 2 News mobile app.
We want to give you a live look right now in New Orleans as Hurricane Zeta just made landfall, battering the area with rain and heavy winds. We still have a report from New Orleans later on 2 News at 4:30. But we do want to talk about weather closer to home. Chase, you've been promising a slow warm up, and we're starting to kind of see that.
That's right. And we're going to have an update on Zeta in just a few more minutes. Another cold morning, though. We broke some records. Randolph, 4 degrees below zero this morning. Deer Creek at 4 degrees. Capitol Reef at 21, and Bullfrog, even down in southern Utah, in the mid-20s. Now, temperatures are warming, especially in the afternoon. We're about 10 degrees warmer across the state as high pressure begins to settle in. Lots of sunshine out there. Pretty pleasant. 53 degrees right now in Salt Lake City, and it's 53 degrees in Logan. A bit colder out in the basin in the upper 40s. 59 in Hanksville, 59 in Cedar, and right now St. George, you're at 71 degrees. Very pleasant and pretty much light winds across our state. Now, you'll still need a jacket though as the sun sets this evening at 7 o'clock. It is 47 degrees, but notice clear skies, and we'll stay in the 30s later tonight. You'll see a little bit of haze on our camera. I'll let you know how long the haze could stick around. Of course, it is Halloween on Saturday. We're going to break down that forecast coming up in just a few more minutes.
All right, the trick-or-treaters want to know. Thanks, Chase. We'll see you in a little bit. Utah reported 10 new coronavirus deaths today and 1,575 new cases. More than 7,200 people were tested since yesterday, which makes our rolling 7-day average 1,549 cases a day, or an infection rate of 17.9%. There are 299 people in the hospital right now with COVID-19.
Another Utah high school going online due to coronavirus cases. Students at Bonneville High School will shift to online learning for the next 2 weeks because more than 15 people tested positive for the virus. Crews are working to sanitize the building, and students will not return to class until November 12th.
And a heads up if you're looking to get a coronavirus test over at Intermountain Healthcare. The COVID-19 hotline has been discontinued, so you must now go online before you go in for a test to that health system. You'll need to visit intermountain.com/COVID testing. And once you're there, there's a chat bot that will ask about your symptoms. If you qualify for a test, you'll schedule an arrival window of time to get that test.
With less than a week to November 3rd, the candidates are making their final pleas to voters. Today, Joe Biden received a COVID briefing from health experts and delivered his closing pitch to voters, arguing he's best suited to lead America through the pandemic.
We will start on day one doing the right things. We'll let science drive our decision.
Meanwhile, President Trump touted the size of his crowds today while speaking to voters as he continues his campaign rallies.
I think the honest reporters will say, in the history of doing what you're doing, I don't think anybody's ever seen enthusiasm like this.
Well, there's no doubt about it. In the final days leading up to November 3rd, it's a tense time right now on the campaign trail, and the candidates are pulling out some unusual moves.
Yeah, Chief Political Correspondent Scott Thuman joins us live from Washington. And Scott, this has to do with where the candidates spent their days, right?
Yeah, you're right about that, Mallory and Jim. And today it's because we're talking about Arizona. Now, this is a state that in theory should be a Republican stronghold, has been for a couple of decades, except for 1996 when it voted for Bill Clinton. But today you saw President Trump holding multiple rallies in Arizona. Less than a week before Election Day, you saw Senator Kamala Harris there on behalf of their ticket, also stumping and trying to garner more support. And that shows what's going on nationwide. There is this microcosm that represents the tension across the country. and where Democrats believe a blue wave could exist. They could steal some of those red states, so to speak. And that's why President Trump there planting a flag in Arizona saying, no, this is Republican territory. But the fact that he's even having to do that he's having to stump in a place like Arizona with a week to go, shows that the numbers are getting smaller. In fact, right now he's down in the polls 2 points to Joe Biden. That obviously is negligible, could go either way with margin of error, but it's a state that he won 4 points by against Hillary Clinton 4 years ago. And that's also shrink from what we saw 8 years ago, Mitt Romney winning it by 9 points. So it definitely kind of illustrates what's going on out there with a week to go.
Yeah, most certainly. You know, they want to make sure that the math adds up in the Electoral College. And so to that point, Scott, where was Joe Biden today and what was he doing?
So limited travel. He stayed in Delaware today. He just went to Wilmington to cast his ballot in early voting there. And then afterward came out, he and his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, talked to the media briefly about health care, about the Affordable Care Act and what they would do to improve it. And Joe Biden saying that he would make sure that they'd look into the possibility of a public option being added to the ACA, making it more of Biden care than Obamacare. But it gives him an opportunity to pivot the conversation once again to COVID, something you're going to hear him stay with a steady diet of for the next 5-6 days, because he believes it's a way to point to the administration and say, they failed, I won't.
Okay, Scott Thuman, live from Washington. Thanks so much, and it will be an interesting next 6 days. Thank you.
Yeah, and down the stretch they come, no doubt. Well, a reminder, 2 News has established a tip line to help you through this election cycle. We're here to help investigate any voting issues that you may experience or see over the next couple weeks, or next couple days, I should say. You can call or text 385-229-2316. The number is right there on your screen. And if you do see anything, make sure you call your local election office first and let them know what you saw.
We now know the identity of the anonymous senior Trump administration official who wrote that 2018 New York Times op-ed that just criticized President Trump. His name is Miles Taylor. He was chief of staff to the former Secretary of Homeland Security, Kirstjen Nielsen. He says he wrote the op-ed declaring he was part of the, quote, resistance inside the Trump administration. As a Republican, he said he wanted Trump to succeed, but ultimately believes Trump proved he's a man without character. Trump called the op-ed treasonous.
I'm sick of it. I'm starting to feel like somebody is messing with the weather so that they can have a marketing tool for us to keep buying everything.
People along the Gulf Coast, they just had enough. More on their frustrations as Hurricane Zeta makes landfall.
To what extent should big tech be protected for what's posted on their sites? I'm Christine Frizzell with a look at that question and the evolving answers following a tense hearing on Capitol Hill.